we see all our attendees starting to come on. I've seen that participant aspect jump up very quickly. So real fast, just to kind of talk a little bit about our up and coming speaker, right? We're going to be focusing on a lot of things from, and he's done a lot of things from due diligence to passive investing to holding properties, right? But ultimately, right, he's going to be focusing on one topic today. Before we go into that aspect, we're going to talk a little bit about Quest and why everyone's here, right? So we do call this our $1 trillion investment mixer. The reason it's called a mixer is right there. Everyone leverage that chat box and that Q&A box. You can ask questions to myself. You can ask questions to the speaker, and you can network with one another. You can pitch your own investments in there, right? You can go ahead and exchange information, whether you're a wholesaler, a lender, a borrower, doesn't matter, okay, guys? So leverage one another and make sure you do your own due diligence. So always remember, right, that Quest, we never can go ahead and provide any type of tax legal investment advice. Try to remember, guys, that we're one of the largest self-directed IRA custodians in the U.S. We are by far the largest in Texas. Little over 20,000 clients, a little $2 billion in assets. We're over 100 employees now, which is really, really cool, and about $350 million in undirected cash. This means that Quest has clients with money that they're looking for investments. They're looking for where to place it, what to do with it, okay? So always remember, though, before we ever work with anyone, you need to do your own due diligence. Quest does not provide any tax legal investment advice, nor can we go ahead and recommend someone that you work with, right? So always remember some of the benefits behind self-directed IRAs from diversification, right? We want to diversify our portfolio, diversify our assets, right? The biggest reason is really the tax savings. Everyone out there is a taxpayer, right? Every time we do an investment, do a deal, we need to pay taxes on our earnings. But if I use my IRA, I can actually avoid those taxes on the profit. So it's a huge advantage. Social investing, using a self-directed IRA to invest in your community. You can actually go touch, feel, see, look at what you're investing into. When I buy stocks or a mutual fund, I have no clue what my money is really doing. But when I invest into the community and buy a property, right, lend my money, right, work with someone that's going in this aspect, I can actually see what my money's doing. Lastly is investing in what you know best, right? We understand that your IRA can do so many things from investing in stocks and mutual funds, but do you really get direction on that? Quest has taken upon ourselves to bring in highly educated speakers like the one we have coming on here in just a minute to really help educate people so they understand what their money is doing, right? We have all sorts of plans that can be self-directed, from traditional and Roth IRAs, which are the most popular, employer plans, and specialty plans. Remember, guys, we have a class on each one of these topics right here. So let me know if you have any questions in this area. Okay. We see people do so many investments from real estate and private entity type deals like multifamily, but believe it or not, one of our largest investments we've seen lately is notes. We've seen people either buying notes or lending money and really focusing on being a passive investor. We've noticed a lot of people aren't looking to be the landlords. They don't want to deal with tenants and toilets, right? Which is the common saying you hear out here in the real estate world. So our speaker we have coming on is going to really be focusing a lot on passive style investing, right? Don't forget that Quest offers endless free education to everyone out there, right? From our YouTube channel to the education center to our virtual happy hours, right? Our weekly webinars like the one today. Mainly, guys, I want you to check out that YouTube channel. It's something big and new that we're trying. We're making sure that even this exact webinar is broadcasted out there on YouTube so people can go out and get your information. So without any further ado, Quest, tonight we have a very special guest speaker, right? And not only has he worked with Quest and been a client of Quest along with his family, but he's actually become a very good personal friend of mine, right? He's done a lot of things with charities. He's helped so many investors, and he has unique ways to help people understand how to be a proper passive investor. And I, as an individual, have actually taken a lot of his classes and have learned from them myself. And it's how I have structured many of my own personal notes out there. So, Eddie, are you with me?
How you doing?
I'm doing great, Eddie. How you been?
I'm good, Derek.
So I'm going to let you take it away. I'm still here. I'm going to kind of let you do a little introduction for yourself and let me know if you have any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Derek. Okay, well, we are going to have a good time tonight. I have about 60 slides to cover in 60 minutes. So we're going to move fast. We'll try to leave some spots for questions at the end and may get to the spot where we just may be able to reach out to you and help you later. But I was kind of thinking, I've done a lot of presentations for Quest. I think I understand you guys in the audience well. And so what really became a reality to me was specifically that, a lot of people want to invest and they don't know who they are. They're not sure who they are. They're not sure if they're really a passive investor or they're not sure if they're a active investor. So I've not done this presentation before. We're just going to work through it tonight, but I've tried to define, I've got some case studies and some examples, and I've just tried to define, if I can, like what I think really, what matters in the business and why it matters. So with that being said, I'm going to go to my first slide. And I titled this presentation, The 5 Steps to Defining Passive versus Active Investors. Because once again, I think this is a common thing that people struggle with. What I know is time has something to do with it, right? If you're working 80 hours a week and you have absolutely no time, you don't really have time to be an active investor. Tolerance. This is not knowledge. This is tolerance. What are you comfortable with, right? And so I've learned to help people slot things in finding assets or finding lanes that they can invest in that fit their tolerance. The next thing is capital. Now, Derek was telling me about, a student that just had come from NoteSchool, and he comes and deposited a significant amount of money, significant as in 7 figures with them. So he has capital. But what if you don't have capital? What if you want to be the bank? What if you want to build legacy, but you don't have capital? Is that possible? So we're going to talk about that tonight. Your direction and desire, you may not be ready for this yet. You may not be, you may not have transitioned. There's an old saying that every real estate investor, when they grow up, they want to be a note guy. And honestly, you may not be ready for it yet. I know people that just want to flip houses and make fee income up front. They don't want to grow any wealth. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm telling you the truth. They don't want that. They're not ready for it yet. And so that may be in your situation. If it is, it's fine. So your direction, desire. And the last thing, your experience and environment. One thing that I hope that NoteSchool always brings is, I started doing this in 1980. I bought 50,000 notes. I built NoteSchool with the heart and the desire that people could leverage our experience and environment. In other words, they don't have to do this for 10 years to go be successful, because they can leverage being in the environment and with people with significant experience. Not just me on my team, but a number of people on our team have been doing this for decades. So we're going to talk about being a deal architect. This may not fit some of you. Some of you may say, I love what you're doing. I want to be passive. And we probably can figure that out, right? But this is what everybody wants. If I were picking the one thing everybody wants, they just want to turn on the spigot of money flying out and go sit in the chair and be passive. Okay. Wait a minute. And they want something else. They want a super high yield. So this is a little bit of a reality check. If you want a super high yield for a passive investment and basically no risk, this presentation is not for you. It's not for you because you're looking for a unicorn, right? And we are in a yield-starved, deal-starved market. We are in a yield-starved, deal-starved market, meaning that people are struggling finding things to invest in. Why do you think Quest has $400 million in cash from their clients? So part of this is a reality check. You know, I would rather help people that really got this than have a room 5 times as full of people that didn't get it. I've been doing this 40 years, right? And so I've learned to like cut off at like where people are stuck and say, we've got to get unstuck from there. So passive investing, super high yield, I'm just saying, if that's the Kool-Aid you're drinking, I'm saying to you that I know very few situations today that are going to get people there. We're going to talk a lot today about risk of active versus passive. We're going to talk a lot about this concept today. Okay. So here's your risk meter. The lowest of the low, the highest of the high. Where do you want to be? The reality is the yield that you're going to make on your investment has a lot to do with it, right? Everybody wants to be passive, but if you make an option to move to active, why do you do it? Because you can control more of the environment and you can use deal architecting techniques, structuring deals, and you can go earn an amazing return, but you have to have some level of active. Now, I'm fully aware of the rules relative to self-directed retirement accounts. You can't go mow the grass in your rent property, but you can have an active brain. You can have an active brain. So we're going to talk about some examples of that as we progress tonight. And so I sort of laid this out, like there's a lot of paths, there's a lot of roads that you can go down the business. Non-performing loans. Non-performing loans would be specifically loans that are, hold on, get my number back here. It went away. Let's see. So non-performing loans could be a loan that's just flat not paying, or a non-performing loan can be a loan that is reperforming. It wasn't paying, but it's performing again. And we see a lot of assets in this category, and we'll talk about this some. In the performing note category, you really have two things. Now, I'm going to not really focus so much on hard money lending tonight, but let me just say this, okay? I have an excessive experience in the note business, right? If you're doing hard money lending, you need to be fully aware that you're making a business loan. The condition of the guy you're loaning to's business has to do with the success of your loan. Now, you may have some vendor, some relationship, somebody that does all that for you, but I'm saying to you that I've had a lot of people show up at my doorstep that tried to go do this themselves with not a sufficient level of experience. They were wanting an active yield, but they were only willing to be a passive level of activity, and it didn't work out well. So I'm not discouraging you from doing it. I'm saying to you, do it with street smarts, right? In either one of these strategies, you can own the entire term of the note. There's a unique strategy you can do with seller financing. And that is, you can actually buy the whole note, and then turn around and sell the front end of the note. It's a leveraging strategy. It's a way to recapitalize. It's a way to take your retirement account and make it work a lot harder and what kind of return you can get. Now, who makes money with financing? Well, if you want to know the most profitable entity in virtually any new car dealership you walk in today, it's the financing entity. It's not selling cars, it's financing. You want to know the most profitable entity in a furniture company? Financing. Who else makes money? Well, obviously the bank and finance companies. So the finance side of the business is very, very powerful, because if you look at all these businesses, their most profitable thing they do is the finance side of the business. So what if that was your retirement account? What if that was your business? What if that was your part-time business, right? So I'm going to talk about a concept tonight. I call it seller financing 4.0. This isn't your daddy's old Oldsmobile seller financing. Let me tell you what NoteSchool is not going to teach you. We're not going to teach you to take a junky piece of property and take a guy that is highly substandard with no proven track record of paying his debts back and say that's a perfect candidate for seller financing. That's not what we're going to teach. I understand people do it. I understand that people talk about it as if it's really an effective model. It's just not. And so I've looked at hundreds of thousands of seller financing. I've studied the performance characteristics of this product as much as probably anybody in the industry ever has. And so I'm going to take you in a lane tonight to show you what's possible. But asset class, both what you're seller financing and who you're seller financing to, has all to do with your success. So not all things are created equal. First thing I'm going to tell you is that if you deal in good collateral, you can attract better notes. There's a stupid, crazy market condition right now. I'm fully aware at the moment, real estate is on fire. Residential property is flying off the ship. It's as good as it's ever been, ever in the last 15 years. What you may not know is that 35%, a third of all the people that could get a mortgage last January cannot get a mortgage this January. Okay, it's called the Mortgage Credit Availability Index. So understand, while real estate is flying off the shelf, the mortgage banking industry is looking at these lurking problems behind the curtain, and they've cut back who they're willing to make a loan to. So the availability of people that need some form of alternative financing is higher than it's been in, let's say, probably 10 years. Opportunity? Yes, if you know how. So you're buying a mortgage note. You're the bank. You're not the landlord. You just own the mortgage against their property, and they're paying you back. So they're paying you back a principal amount plus interest, monthly payments probably, and it has an amortization term, right? So the buyer then puts the John Hancock and signs the note. And in that note, then you've heard it called seller financing. You've heard it called paper. You've heard it called real estate notes. You've heard it called a mortgage. Those are all things that you may have heard them called, but it's all kind of the same thing. Now, this note, why people like my business, honestly, better than rentals, is it produces mailbox money. That mailbox money is making your mailbox grow. And basically, you do a transaction one time, and it has a really long-term benefit. You get the check without the mailbox, without the invoice coming in the mailbox. Okay, so that's a really critical thing. It's why people like it. You may love dealing with tenants and toilets. You may love that, and seriously, you may do. But if you don't have a tolerance for that, we talked about tolerance. This is a great alternative. You can enter this business at any level. You can be extremely passive or extremely active. I'm being fair with you and saying you can't be extremely passive and expect an active investor's yield. That's an unrealistic expectation. But you can move into this business with something that's safe and comfortable for you that will work. Work one time, long-term benefit. People like that. Notes are transferable. You can buy and sell a note just like you can a car or a house or any other asset. So a bank, a mortgage lender owns notes, right? Who else could own notes? Well, it could be a seller financer. It could be somebody that seller finances property. Then all of a sudden you have a note investor. That's me. That's you. And that note investor then can buy that note. That seller finance note typically sells at a discount. It's not absolutely legally required that it sells at a discount, but that note can sell at a discount. Now the note investor owns the note and all the rights that that the bank had to collect the note, or the seller financer, he inherits those rights. Now we're going to talk a lot tonight about the passive versus the active. And we're going to do a lot of comparisons and saying, what do you need to know? What degree do you need to know to go be one versus the other? So you're buying a note. There's 3 underwriting characteristics that scream in any note deal. The first is the guy that owes the money, the payer. The second, the question is, will they pay? Second is the loan itself, the mortgage note, the interest rate, the payment, how long it's payable over, how much will you get paid? The third characteristic is what we call the collateral characteristic, right? Now there's 2 categories under collateral. The first is the property itself. Most people already know that. The house is my collateral. Now, by the way, you're going to see some chains come over this house, and that is because that is mortgaged. So the chains represent a house that's mortgaged. But there's other piece of collateral in our business, and that is essentially the paperwork, okay? So if I were looking at this, I would say the active investor has to have a really good handle on that, okay? Pretty much anybody can figure the loan amount. And the active investor also has to have a sense of the likelihood of getting paid. So these are areas. Now, once again, there are no-brainer great deals, and there are deals that aren't as great. So I'm just trying to help you. I'm not trying to necessarily get you to come to Note School. I'm not trying to get you to buy a note from me versus somebody else. I'm not trying to do any of that tonight. I'm trying to address, in 20 years of training, what I have heard a lot of people come back to me down the road and say, Eddie, we didn't know. So I'm trying to say, I'm giving you some lanes to operate within. Yes, I kind of opened up tonight, honestly saying, if you want to earn some crazy double-digit returns and you want to be passive, you need to know your money's at risk. You just need to make sure you may not know what level of risk it's at, because it's not a market condition at the moment, right? I've lived in the business since prime interest was 21%. I've lived in a lot of cycles, I understand, but we're not in a yield-driven market right now. We are in a get me my money back market. So we have developed a very great website called Notes Direct. It's notesdirect.com. There are notes in there that will not fit a passive investor. There are notes in there that would fit a passive investor. So you can decide whether you want to be passive or active. And this is just a platform. We have our notes for sale in there, and we have other clients' notes for sale in there. We have loans in there that take a pretty sophisticated Note School educated investor that are non-performing notes with big profits and things that need to be thought through. And then we have notes in there that are pretty passive. They've been paying for years. It's pretty safe. There's not a lot to figure out. It's a lot easier than owning a rent house. And to me, it's even easier to underwrite than a rent house because they have a proven track record. So there's notes in there that will fit both sides of the market. I wanted to show you some real deals real quick. Seminole, Florida. I don't care where the asset is. Derek, the one thing I would say to you is, in my business, I don't need to ride by the property. It does not need to be in my neighborhood. I bought 50,000 notes and virtually none of them were in my zip code.
I've seen that, and that's a true statement from Eddie.
So you get that. You're like, I want to go ride by my investment. I don't. I'm not saying I don't want due diligence. I don't need to burn. I'm not a contractor. I don't need any contractor bags or gloves, right? I'm the bank. So here's Seminole, Florida. This was a loan that was $80,000. It was written at 6% interest. And we bought this asset direct. So we didn't buy it. This is not an asset listed on Notes Direct at the price we paid, but we were more active and we bought this asset at a dang good price. So we bought this asset at about a $15,000 haircut, $15,000 discount. What's the house worth? $210,000. How long have they been paying? Well, if there's 182 months remaining as a 20-year note, they've been paying about 5 years. So we've invested $65,000 as a first mortgage against a house worth $210,000. Safe, 5-year pay history, good title, taxes were paid, pretty safe. 182 payments. We're going to get back $123,000 for our investment. Now, let me just say this. That's not for every passive investor, but there's a way that we can work with a passive investor, or our students can, our network. And we can show you how to do that. But that's a pretty solid deal. You can probably check yes in the blank. I'd do that deal. And we did do that deal. This is near Phoenix, Avondale, Arizona, $92,000. This was a lower interest rate, 5%, $751 a month, 172 months remaining. That's like 14 years, close to it. We bought it at a deeper discount because why? Lower interest rate. Lower interest rate meant we bought it at a deeper discount compared to what the asset was worth, right? Or what the loan balance was. The asset's worth $155,000. We put 66. Are we safe? Pretty safe. 172 at $751 a month. We're going to get back almost double our money. Would you do that deal? Ask yourself, would I do that deal? Do I care that I'm not in Phoenix? Because I bought 50,000 over 40 years. I don't care. Experience has taught me something different than fear. I know what to be fearful of. I'm not fearful of this. Here's another asset. This was in Maine, Athens, Maine. This was a mobile home and land. It is permanently affixed. 68,000, 7%. And we paid up for this asset a little more. But once again, it wasn't as long a term, and it was a little higher interest rate. $800 a month. We're going to collect $800 a month. We're going to collect back $95,000 on a 52 investment over 10 years. Once again, ask yourself, would you do this? Right? I don't mean, we've done the due diligence. I'm not asking you to make a pure decision with no due diligence. I'm saying with proper due diligence, could you be comfortable with the numbers I'm showing you? So source of notes is we've got Notes Direct, and that's what we've done. We figured out if we could help people solve this problem in the industry, it was a big underserved market. So we put a lot of value in that. So these deals, which one do you have to be? Do you have to be, could only an active investor buy these assets? Well, an active investor would probably have to bring these assets to the table. So you couldn't be passive because nobody's going to tear your living room door open and go find those assets. So if you bought them off of Notes Direct, you probably could find assets like that. They wouldn't be as good a price because us or a student or some other investor is going to go out and do the work and pull it all together, and then we'll put them on Notes Direct. So it wouldn't be quite as good of a yield, but it wouldn't be as much work. It just gives you an example of one lane that I see people doing in the business. So could you do this and be passive? Absolutely. Either one. Here's what I see a lot of passive investors do. They're committed to their work, their family, their retirement. They're committed to a lot of things. They're just not committed to a lot of work. And they wake up kind of dealing with what I call a junky deal, right? And then all of a sudden they're like, well, but it ain't the deal you pass up that will keep you up at night. It ain't the deal you pass up that'll keep you up at night. Let me just tell you this, friend. I have worked on some crazy stuff, and probably somewhere in my career, I've worked on something crazy like this, but I've also worked at it a lot. I'm an active investor. I'm more experienced, not saying that looks like junk to me, period, but not saying that isn't junk. I'm just saying know what junk is. And if it appears like junk and you don't have a tolerance for it, then don't walk, run. Another thing is the zombie house, right? A lot of people, try to deal in some asset class that's just not a good piece of property. So I'm telling you, as a seasoned active investor, if that's the asset, Eddie is out. Now, what do you think the answer is for a passive investor? Yeah, out twice, right? Times 5. Here's a case study. This is an asset that my wife bought, and the price my wife paid for the asset was an active strategy. But she also ended up dealing with a passive investor. So she did both. Both people won. Here's the asset. It's in San Antonio. The house was worth 120 grand, 120,000. Loan balance was 85,447. It was 9.1% interest. Payment was $710 a month. Remaining term was 322 months, right? The buyer owed 71% of what the property was worth, or said differently, the loan to value ratio was 71%. So the buyer had a lot of what we'll call skin in the game. Okay. So she buys it, and she's out there with her fishing pole in the water every day. So she buys this asset at a good discount. She pays about $64,000 for an $85,000 note. Now, once again, I'm giving you realistic expectations. This loan had a 3-year perfect pay history. It was worth $120,000. She dug this deal out of the wood. Okay, so I'm trying to say, if you're passive, don't say, oh yeah, hand me 10 of those. Well, hell yeah, every one of us would say that, right? But you got to go get out there and go do that. But she has a strategy where she works deals, and she bought this in her retirement account. Okay. Now, once again, it falls within the realm of we're in the business. This is just a deal that came across our desk. We created an environment where it comes across our desk, but it did come across our desk. So that 9.1% interest plus a $21,000 discount makes her interest or yield on her investment almost 13%. Would you do this? 3-year perfect pay history. House is worth, the loan is 85, the house is worth 120. So she buys it in her IRA account, right? She buys it at a good price of just under $64,000. Let me say this. If we've disconnected in our communication and you're like, there's no way I would do that, then you just don't have the train of thought to realize what we've learned after all these years of experience. Her investment in this deal is just slightly over 50% of what the collateral's worth. Customers established they're going to pay back because they've been paying back for over 3 years. So that's what, to me, makes it a solid deal. Now, some people may say, I would buy this, but I don't have the money. You need a capital recoupment plan. We'll talk about that. So this is the note. This is just a picture of an Excel amortization. It shows the orange just shows you the principal amount owed over the life of the loan. And it shows you that it is a long-term note, 233 months. And so we buy this in a Roth IRA account. Okay. That's her investment, which means that she bought that note at a pretty good discount. She's going to earn that discount over the life of the loan. Okay. So she buys it and funds it. And as we said, she's got a pretty good cushion factor in this deal. Her investment is 63 and the property was worth, you remember what it was worth? It was worth $120,000. So understand, this is probably what? Less than 55% investment compared to the value of the property. 50,000 closings, I can live with that. So look, here's what we do. We buy it. She buys it at a good price, and now she's got discount, but it doesn't have anything to do with what, after she buys it, what she might could wake up and do later. Now, she did buy it. She did fund it. She bought the note. She bought the cash flow. And now she says, I bought a long-term note. I want to turn around and I want to sell. She collects 5 payments on the deal. It has a loan servicer. They collect the payments. Everything's going good. And then she says, after $3,500 in payments she's received, you know, what if I wanted to really churn my investment? Better than 13%. Way better than 13%. And once again, passive or active? How many passive investors are going to do this? Not without an active brain, not without active resources, right? We're very clear to stay within the lane that the IRS requires to be, quote, passive, but we are in the opportunity business and we've created an environment where there's opportunity. So Martha has passive investors all the time that say, look, Martha, I'm not in your position. This is my wife. They say, Martha, I'm not in your position. I don't have the opportunities you have. I've had rent properties. I kind of hate them. You may not, but they do. And they're not working for me. So I just want to go put my money out with something safe and real estate secured. And Martha goes, and here's Martha and my whole family here. That's my, on the right of me, I'm in the middle and Martha's in the middle, if you can see. That's my son, Wood. He's a fireman and paramedic and works in the business kind of part-time. They have his wife, Tessa. They have their second baby due here in about a couple of months. To the taller one to the left, that's my son, Hudson. He works in the business with us full-time. My son-in-law, the guy in the sweater, Matt, he works in the business with us full-time. On the bottom, in front of Matt, that's my daughter, Emily. She works in the business part-time. She's also a professional ballet dancer. So does something else to make a living, as does Wood. My mother-in-law, Nana, she's in her 80s. She just turned 84, and we have kept her in the business. My father-in-law passed away when about 23, 24 years ago. So we've kept her in the business doing what we do. So she has stayed very passive, but we've facilitated to be able to do that. There's Martha in the middle, and then Tessa, Wood's wife, is in front. So why does Martha do all this? Right? Martha is extremely good at investing in our retirement accounts. She has about 9 different accounts, right? And including our kids, including retirement accounts, Coverdale educational accounts, for our grandkids. Then she has health savings.
You have everything, Eddie.
We do. Why does she do it? Because Martha wants to build legacy. And you see, most people think I can't build legacy because I don't have millions of dollars to start with. And the truth of the matter is, you know, for 100% fact, Derek, this didn't start with millions of dollars in the retirement accounts, did it? What it started with is understanding how to be a deal architect, right? That's how it started. So Martha buys the whole note. Then Martha turns around and sells some payments of this note. Now remember, Martha already collected 5 payments. Then she sells payments on this note. She collects 5 payments. She sells 15 years of this note to a passive investor that doesn't want to go do anything but get a check and don't have any aggravation. For that, they're willing to invest at a far lower yield because they have a far different level of activity. And they like investing behind, because remember, when is Martha going to get the note back? After they collect all their payments. So that's they like that, right? They write a check for $84,178. What? Yeah. She bought it, 5 payments. She sold 15 years of the note, and for basically 20 grand more than she paid for it. Right? Oh, wait a minute. Whoa. And they get a 6% return, and the passive investor gets what they want. Of course, Martha gets what she wants too, because she owns the back 137 payments of this note now with no money invested. Now, I'm being very clear about this, okay? I've spoken to thousands of investors, tens of thousands, right? I understand an investor says, I don't want to do anything. I just want to go be Martha. That's an unrealistic expectation. But what I'm saying is, if an investor wants safety and comfort, Martha helps the investor do that. No problem. If you want to go do what Martha does, you come to NoteSchool, we can teach you how to do it. We've taught lots and lots and lots of people how to do it. So you can decide what you want to be. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's just an answer that fits your situation. All the engineers, Derek, say, Eddie, what is the yield on Martha's investment? I say very high. Of course I can calculate it. It's crazy. You don't need a calculator. It's too damn high, right? So Martha sells the partial, and she owns the back 137 payments of the note. So here's the passive investor here, right? Here's Martha here, right? Both of them got what they wanted. This passive investor gets a 6% return. He gets all of his money before Martha gets any of the backside money. So is Martha incentivized to make sure that she's thought about all the things that she should have been thinking about before she sold it? I say, yeah. Now, the other thing is Martha, once again, Martha entered into a realm of doing more of a deal architect, deal maker strategy. The end of 180 months, Martha gets the note back. They'll owe about $60,000 principal plus 9% interest for the remaining, that's about 11 and a half years of this note. That's how it works. All right, so here's Martha. Here's my note seller. Martha pays for the note. She collects 5 payments. She does it in her self-directed retirement account. What does Martha get? A long-term cash flow. Then Martha comes along and finds this passive investor. Okay? He wants 15 years of the note, and Martha sells him 15 years of the note, and he pays her enough money to pay what she paid for the note plus some juice, totaling about $20,000. Is that a good deal? It's an extraordinary deal. Is it doable? It is doable. She did do it. Is it a good deal? Of course it's a good deal. You're saying to yourself, who do I want to be? What level of commitment do you have? If I've done anything in this presentation tonight, I hope I've put a degree of caution into like people looking out there and saying, I want to do this crazy high risk deal, but wait a minute, I'm not sure what I'm really investing in. You think Martha knew what she was doing? Bet your Texas cowboy boots she knew what she was doing, right? She's worked along beside me in this business for a long time. She is good at what she does. But also she finds investors that want to buy the partial and they believe in Martha. Now they have a secure loan, right? They have a safe, secure loan. And Martha has done this with a very high track record of 100% of her investors haven't lost any money. That's not any guarantees. It's no promises. It's not anything. We're just talking about what she does as an active investor. And so Martha is clearly the active investor. Okay. So Martha is this person in the deal. And this guy right here with his 15 years of payments, he's a passive investor. Any right or wrong? It's all right. You just have to know who you are. So she paid $63,988. She collected 5 payments. She sold the back side of the front side of the note for $84,000. She made $23,000 adding these two numbers together. She's got almost $24,000 profit today. And if you calculate future payments, it's another almost $100,000. Hey, Derek. Whoops, I lost him. He'll be back. Loan is serviced by a third-party servicer. This is what allows it to be a passive for the investor that bought it. So every month, the payment goes to the servicer, and essentially they do the work. They collect the payment. They do all this stuff. We would not sell a partial to that investor unless it was third-party serviced. So all of a sudden, the payments go to the servicer and now owned to the note owner. That is what takes it to a very passive status for the partial investor. What else do we teach? Well, we teach people to buy problem loans, non-performing notes. It's like a pawn shop. You have a certain price you pay for the note. The collateral's worth this. Your investment is this. That's how it works. So think in terms of you have the as-is value of the property. You buy that note at a certain discount. Maybe you buy the note for 60 cents of what the property's worth. Maybe you buy it for 30 cents of what the property's worth. And I've bought thousands of notes secured by non-performing notes secured by property. Great deal. It can be a great deal, right? You buy a loan. It's in payments or in default. You can either modify the loan and let them start paying again. You can get a deed in lieu of foreclosure. In other words, they just walk away and say, I'll just give you a deed to the property, or you can go through the foreclosure process. Statistically, you're probably going to do about a third and a third and a third. Statistically, that's probably about the truth. But if you can't modify the loan, so that deal's off the table, and you can only get a deed in lieu or only foreclose, what are you going to end up with? You're going to end up with a property. Now, remember, you're into this thing at a deep discount. Maybe you're into it for 40% of what the property's worth, right? Ask a real estate investor today if they'd like to be into a deal for 40 cents of what it's worth. I can pretty much tell you right now, as tight as the market is, they would like that idea, right? So non-performing notes. So when do non-performing notes happen? When there's crazy stuff happen in the market. Well, where's the market? Well, at the moment, it's on fire, right? Reports show biggest housing market gains in 15 years. You can't go wrong. Everything is unbelievable. You know why? Because there's a shortage of listings. Listings are down about 40%. So the property listings are down. There's a shortage of property, and residential property is on fire, right? Could something go wrong? Did you say something could go wrong? Well, if you're looking at loans that are in a legal agreement, average loan balance of all the loans in forbearance is about 200 grand, right? There is 2,744,000 loans that are in a legal agreement not to pay. This stands for government sponsored enterprise. These are government loans otherwise, and these are private loans, right? So 5.2% of all the residential mortgages in existence are delinquent. No, they're in forbearance. They're not delinquent. They just have a legal agreement with their lender they don't have to pay. So people say, well, that's 5%. That's a big number. Huh. How about this? What about loans that are not in forbearance? Loans that are delinquent, that are not in forbearance, are up almost 2 million loans from 2020, right? So now we have another crazy number, right? There is over 2 million loans that are delinquent, but not in forbearance. Oh, now you're talking about 9% adding forbearance plus delinquent loans. You're saying that we have about 8.5 or 9% of every residential mortgage in existence that isn't making a payment. You see, what I want people to do is to learn to make decisions based on what they understand. This tells me there's going to be an avalanche of non-performing notes. I've been doing this 40 years. I've lived through several cycles. There's going to be an avalanche. And by the way, Derek, if you're here, you haven't seen this chart, but it might be worth paying attention to.
I'm listening. I've been loving this so far.
These are the 17 million. You got this? 17 million Americans that are either not making their rent payment or their mortgage payments. 17 million. This is the projected losses of those loans. And guess what state is number one?
I'm looking through. Wow, look at that.
42.5% of every mortgage, every residential door in Texas either didn't make a rent payment or a mortgage payment. You think there's going to be some distressed assets on the market? Now, I know you can't call a local real, they'll act like you're crazy. Of course you're crazy. They're fighting in the front yard to buy a house. Let me tell you something. We have never seen a market with a dam that's holding all the water at the moment. But what happens when it tips over the top or it breaks? I fully understand. Things are awesome selling houses right now. But I've also been doing this a long time, and I have a significant amount of energy, time, and money invested to make sure I'm reading the market right. If you come to NoteSchool, we're going to talk about seizing opportunities and how to analyze the market so you're making wise decisions. This is the mortgage credit availability chart. So this was in 2014, it was about here. And this is the end of 2020, and we're almost at an even line. This represents the drop in mortgage credit availability. It's about a 35% drop in who can get a mortgage. That's from Mortgage Bankers Association, by the way. Commercial. Can you say nuclear bomb? So this was a recent study that was done by Commercial Mortgage-Backed Security Loans. They evaluated the lodging properties, and they are down in value 36%. They evaluated retail, worse. They're down 41.5% in value. Value decline. Okay. Then they evaluated multifamily. Now, Derek, there's a lot of people in your world that are drunk on multifamily.
Yes.
Am I right?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay. Let me just tell you something. Multifamily is valued based on its income approach. That's how you value it. Okay. The income has been, the occupancy and income has been considerably declined. Look, if you can Google, you can find everything I just showed you. Let me just tell you something. I believe we are looking over the horizon at the biggest opportunity that I've ever seen in 40 years in this business. But we're going to do it with information and facts and knowledge and utilizing experience. We're not going to shut our eyes and run blindly across the interstate. Big opportunity for both active and passive investors. Huge opportunity. I hope I've like lined things out where you realize that there is a process, right? Greed has nothing to do with investing. Greed is a foolish environment to be in to do investing. Smarts and a cool hand and the smart decision is what lets you be a successful investor. The guy that always wants the highest yield may not know what he's looking for. He may not understand the element of risk he's taken. And if I've ever seen one element I wanted to fix over and over. So this asset class of office and retail and multifamily, non-performing notes on the horizon, you can bet your best pair of Texas Cowboy boots on that one. Nobody cares more about your wealth than you. Nobody cares more about your wealth than you. Invest wisely. So the risk or the yield. More passive you are, the lower the yield. The more active you are, the higher the yield. What's the yield on Martha's partial? Crazy. But she also made some things happen to do that. That wouldn't fit necessarily a passive investor, but the passive investor did really good, right? So I want to give you guys some resources. If you like this and you think we can help you, let me just give you some things that you might progress with. Now, this is a free ebook and a free workshop, okay? NoteSchool.com/Quest Trust. NoteSchool.com/Quest Trust. I'm going to give you a really nice ebook that talks about investing. And I'm also going to give you a mind map that's Martha's mind map on how she does partials. Has the workflow so you can kind of see what it looks like. It's a very good informational piece of tool. I'm also going to give you a workshop, right? So you're going to be able to come spend time with us. We want you to figure out who you are and what suits you best. Whatever level you want to be, we want to figure out a way to help you. We just want to help you identify who you want to be. It's like the select comfort bed, Derek. Like some people are 100, and some people are 35. And it's perfectly okay, whichever they are. They just need to know what their prime situation is. So, Derek, I'm gonna see if we can cover some things for you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have any. I don't know if you have any.
Yeah, we got a bunch of questions. Could you bring up your previous slide, how people could get in contact and stuff, and get some of that information real fast?
I will be happy to do that.
Absolutely. So, a lot of people were asking about some of the yields on some of the investments, and it's sometimes hard to calculate because of not just that it's a good rate of yield, right, or good rate of return, but really because a lot of it comes down to whether you're buying or getting the payments on the front end, the back end, if there was any points involved, these type of things. Is that correct?
It is. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I've never seen yield on a tax return.
Fair enough.
Okay. So I see a lot of times people get, as I call it, drunk on yield. And sometimes they're not drunk on how much money they're actually making. Right. And I understand the concept of yield, and I'm just human as anybody else. Everybody wants to go to the country club and say, I got an incredible yield. Passive investors generally get between 5 and 7% return is what I generally see for really something that's safe and legitimately passive, right? That's for a long-term deal. Yeah, you can do a short-term deal and earn a higher yield, but in 6 months, you got to go do the deal all over again. You see what I'm saying? I like long-term because you can put a deal to bed.
So someone's asking some things about, can you explain how a note can be better than a long-term rental property, right? And I think I'm going to have a different answer than you slightly, but I'm just curious to see how you would answer that. Because I know, just as investors, we both have had both at some point in time.
Look, a rental property is a job. A note is an investment. People buy a rent house thinking they're making an investment. 3 years later, they figure out it's a job. That's not a full-time job, but I'm just saying. And the other thing about rentals is people consistently get fooled about how much money they're really going to get. They think they're going to earn income, and then all of a sudden the air conditioner goes out and it blows a year and a half or two. Am I right, Derek?
So you are.
Listen, I've trained thousands of people that are burnout landlords. I know what the pain is. And if you have a tolerance for it and it's what you like, don't let me stop you. But what I'm trying to say, I've learned a lot of people would rather be the bank than a landlord. If that's you, then that's a conversation we should be having.
You know, it's funny because I definitely would fall on the fence in both sides, okay? And as a guy who currently owns a couple of rental properties and I currently have notes, all right, I would say probably about every quarter, there's something that I have to do for my rental property. That's actually rather obnoxious. Whereas with the note, I will say, to be 100% honest, my main focus is helping to build Quest. I have a full-time career. I love my career. I really do. Right. I love doing these events with people like you, Eddie, and networking and speaking about this stuff. And as dorky as it is, I like knowing that I know so much about IRS tax code. And while I'm learning and doing all that stuff, I am not worried about tenants. I'm not worried about my property manager. And I think there's something to be said about that I can go build something else over here while I still get payments over here. Can I make money in rental properties? Absolutely. But I'm trading a time for a dollar. And I think that's where it comes down to play.
There's no doubt about it.
So, and I've learned that. So, Eddie, I don't mean to throw you under the bus, but I know you have some other events outside of this, right? And so I know you have that partial class tools, but I've attended your NoteSchool events. Can we talk about those a little bit, or?
Yeah, so we have 3-day classes. There's some preparatory things that we do. So it's not just physically the 3-day class. There's engagement with staff. There's kind of a identifying, what your model is, depending on what your story. We try to help people apply NoteSchool to their story. Mm-hmm. It's not a one-size-fits-all shoe. So we give people like other classes outside of the 3-day. we require that they engage with our team before and during and after the 3-day, because otherwise, look, I've been doing this 40 years. In all due respect, I don't need to practice and teaching a bunch of other people to do it that aren't going to go do it.
Absolutely.
I want people to go do this, not to go become, a library is full of information. A library is not necessarily full of action.
So before we kind of end the whole presentation, and I know we still have a couple other questions and stuff, is there a way people can get in contact with you or someone on your team? This way, if they have more questions, if they want to attend one of your classes, if they want to do something like that, is there a way they can get in contact with you?
If you want to move past the little free gift I gave you, just go to info@noteschool.com. Just info.
info@noteschool.com.
Yeah.
And that's the email address, right?
Yeah.
Boom.
Do that, and you'll get connected with somebody on my team that can help you answer questions. We're happy to do that. Yeah, please do.
Absolutely. And so, Eddie, any last minute thoughts before we kind of end things out? I appreciate you coming on. You've been.
Well, I really, this is the first time I've actually done this presentation, but I've addressed this presentation at classes and at events and at Quest events and everything else, Derek. I've addressed this hundreds of times where somebody's like, well, I thought I made an investment and found out I invested I got over my skis, right? I invested over my head. And I'm like, okay, because you were drunk on yield. I don't say it in an inappropriate tone. I'm saying to myself, they were chasing yield. They weren't chasing an appropriate investment for what they had the competency and the commitment to invest. Right?
Yep.
And you, Derek, you live it.
I do. And sometimes even with me having great mentors like my dad and yourself and Joe and things like that, and people don't know who Joe is, he works with you, but I still sometimes think I'm better. I'm like, man, I know it all. I know this. And then every time I think that, boop, here you come. And you're like, check this out. And I'm like, wow.
Well, I mean, and once again, I'm trying to go help your audience at where they need help. Right? I can train people to be a ninja in this business. I'm 100% confident we can do that. But the truth of the matter is, some people don't want to be a ninja in this business. They got a job that they're working every week, or they got grandkids, or they want to go. Well, look, that's perfectly cool. And if I've done that and helped define it, at least where they have a caution flag, where they're like, okay, well, that's true, and I can see that, then I've helped people kind of round out to fit this business to their situation. We would love for every one of them to come hang out with us at a 3-day class. I'll bet you anything when you leave there at the end of 3 days, you're like, oh my. Am I right, Derek?
You absolutely are right. So it's actually funny. That's really where I got started. When I first got out of the military, my dad had me take your class to understand real estate and the differences between fix and flips, wholesales, rentals, etc. And man, when I understood notes, it changed everything. So Eddie, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really do appreciate it. You truly are a good friend of ours. You've worked with Quest for a long time. So if there's ever anything that you have questions on, you let me know. And guys, make sure you check out noteschool.com/QuestTrust. And any one of us is here to help you guys out. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Eddie.
Good night. Thank you.